I believe that you can beat cancer at any age and at any stage, right? I believe that you can be an 82-year-old diagnosed with leukemia, stage 4, and beat it at 82 years old without any toxicity to your body.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Dr. Shetlin here, and I'm with Owen Hemsath today, and we're going to be talking about natural ways to beat cancer. Some of the topics we've been talking about in the past, how to boost our immune system naturally. Our immune system, according to Guidance Medical Textbook, is fighting cancer every day. Every day, each of us is growing 10,000 cancer cells. And it's the direct responsibility of our immune system, which is under the control of our nervous system, to help recognize those cells as non-self and take care of them. But sometimes our immune system's compromised due to lifestyle, stress, lack of sleep, whatever. So we're going to talk about some of these things today and how Owen has had such an amazing journey. Unfortunately, getting into the realm, putting his toe into the realm of cancer and fighting cancer himself personally, but some beautiful highlights to give us on the positive effects he's had naturally. So Owen, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from and what you do.
Yeah. I am a high stress type A individual. That has to be right. I have to be in control. And then I developed cancer. You know what I mean? And it's like shocker that happened. But in reality, I never even made those connections. I had to go through cancer in order to be willing to listen to what the science was actually saying about my body and to what my body was actually trying to tell me. So let me take us back about 7 years. 7 years ago, I'm a YouTube coach. This is what I do. I help companies start YouTube channels, right? So this has been the line of work that I'm in. I know it's unusual. It's I've always loved to do it. I grew up in Long Beach, California. Always wanted to be in the movies. Never was like into like fighting it out in Hollywood though. And so when YouTube came around, I was like, wow, this is like a really great outlet for me. So I'm a YouTube coach. I'm a type A guy. I'm a big kind of like gotta win, like to win personality guy. And 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 thymoma cancer. The doctors found a 12-centimeter tumor in my chest. I did everything that they said to do. I never even Googled my own cancer. Okay. I just did what they said to do. So I had a surgery to remove it. Then I did some powerful chemotherapy. They told me, you're strong, you're healthy, you can handle chemo. And it wasn't years later that I really had to ask myself, do strong and healthy people get stage 3 cancer? So I did a lot of chemotherapy, and then I did some radiation, 30 days straight of radiation. It was at that time that the doctors didn't really declare me as cured. They declared me as done with my treatment protocol. And I feel like that was really interesting because I never really got that NED or you're in the clear. It was just like, you're done. And so I went and I lived my life. I lived well. I thought I was living. It's really not true. For the next 4.5 years, I battled severe health problems ancillary to the radiation. I developed superior vena cava syndrome. My hair started turning white and falling out. Like I was an unhealthy person. But I just did cancer. I'm doing okay for someone who just did cancer. I had multiple angioplasties. I had SVC syndrome, is just your veins stop working, blood clots everywhere. Multiple times I had to go in and do this. And then about a year after that, I was re-diagnosed. This is 2 years ago. I was re-diagnosed with stage 4 terminal thymoma cancer. My cancer had come back. And that brings us up to present day. So, in just 19 months after receiving that terrible diagnosis where the doctors told me that there was nothing that I could do and that I would die in 2 to 5 years, and 5 was really pushing it, that I've been able to shrink my tumors over 50%. I'm totally asymptomatic today. I have no symptoms of cancer. Only CT scans can see the minuscule remnants of the tumors that are left. Very, very low metabolic activity. So I still have tumors in my body, but I live this vibrant, healthy, full life. And I've been doing it with natural therapies. So that's the whole story in a nutshell.
That is awesome. So it sounds like the system that we have, unfortunately, and I hate bashing on anything. I mean, you and I are both really positive, optimistic people. So we're not bashers by nature. But when we look at a system that is so broken where it sucks people in, taking them to the brink of death, it doesn't matter. They've already got something that's hard to deal with. Now it's just make it more toxic, more difficult, more unsurvivable, so to speak, and astronomically expensive.
Yeah. And the way that it's all done too, the way that your billing is sort of hid in these insurance files, it's like chemotherapy is $8,000 a session for me. And I was only in the chair for 15 minutes. So it was I don't want to call it low dose, but it was because I don't think that's what it was. I actually think it was like high concentration for small amounts of time. But a hyperbaric oxygen chamber for my house cost me $6,000. And I'll be able to use that for 25, 35 years. And some studies have even shown hyperbaric chamber therapy more effective than radiation therapy. And I can use the hyperbaric with my kids, with my wife, and with the neighbors. When you compare that to chemotherapy, like you said, it's their whole philosophy is that you need an external thing to cure your body, when really you need to get out of your body's way and let your body do the healing. You need to facilitate healing in your own body.
I think that's the real tragedy or crime of the current system is it's looking at us and saying, oh, we aren't healthy innately. We're just right from birth. It's, oh my gosh, this woman has a growing fetus in her. Let's treat it like a tumor. We've got to do everything to remove this crisis. And then, of course, once this tumor baby has come out, it can't innately function on its own with the help of its mother and its father. We've got to give all these vaccines and injections and vitamin K and all these. We have to do all these things right from the gates. It's a sick care system rather than a healthcare system. And then where it comes back to you as an adult fighting with cancer and chemo, it's, well, look, we're going to make money whether you live or die. It's kind of how it just breaks my heart that that's how it is.
It's interesting that medical industry is the only industry we treat this way, right? Like if you were to take your car to a mechanic and they charge you $8,000 and it's like, we don't know if it's going to work or not, right? There would be no free market, but we have deified our medical system. We have a very scientific culture, right? Like we all think we're all scientists. Everybody thinks like, well, I'm really scientific because I have an iPhone. And it's like, can you grow a radish though? Let's talk about growing food and like soil and all these life-giving and life-sustaining activities. But it's like, oh no, like I believe in medicine, I'm scientific. And it's really like the science speaks to the opposite of what you're talking about, right? So we look at this system and it's product-based. They have products to sell you. And I think that for me, this is really hard to talk about with people because they're like, oh, I'm going to get chemo. And you don't want to like demonize the thing. You know what I mean? It's like pulling them out of the matrix. You've got to like let them know that you care about them first. And I feel like as a patient advocate myself, because even though I have my business, my job, like my passion is to help other cancer patients. I was just speaking to a cancer patient on my YouTube comments right now, just before this interview, and we're just talking about diet and different plans. Understanding how people get healed. That was the biggest move for me in the very beginning when I was diagnosed. And the doctors don't tell you that there's like, oh, metabolic therapy and fasting. They don't tell you that. They don't even know. They're just like, it's right chemo, radiation, surgery, it's all the things. But I looked around that chemotherapy room and I'm like, everybody here is dying and miserable.
Right.
And being a success-minded person, I go, I want to be around the winners. I want to be around the people beating cancer. And that's when I began to I flipped my thinking, and it was like, not do what the doctors do, but what do cancer winners do? What do cancer fighters do? I'm going to do those things. And I found an entire community, an entire science called metabolic therapy that enabled me to have the courage to stop doing chemo and to go full force on letting my body heal. And that has been the most empowering journey of my life, because here's the thing, I may still have tumors, but I do not fear cancer. I do not fear cancer for my kids. My kids will know how to beat it. My kids will also know how to reverse diabetes if that ever happens. We know how to overcome a myriad of diseases because we know how to beat cancer. And that is the most empowering sort of feeling a person can have, I think.
I think that's so powerful, Owen. And I think where we need to help bring this more into the light of the public is, and again, we're not trying to be bashing on the system, but it is broken to the point of, unlike other countries who spend 4% of their gross national product on healthcare or disease care, we spend 21% in America. We spend more than any country on the planet by 4 or 5 times, and yet we're the sickest country on the planet. When they only track the top 37 countries in healthcare, and we rank number 37th.
And you know what? No one's happy. Like, it's funny because you think like, well, we're all getting treated, but like you walk around, everyone's grumpy, everyone's cracked out from all the painkillers they're on all the time. You know, even for me I've been nursing a snowboarding injury, and I'm grateful that I'm strong enough and healthy enough to go snowboarding and maybe even be a little adventurous. But I've been taking painkillers, aspirin, and even that I'm just not comfortable with it. It's not, I do it because we have it. I see all these people around on all sorts of pills and still no one's happy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, let's bring it around here. So we've got this system, again, not to beat up on it, but it takes us down this path because the doctors by law a medical doctor can't offer something else other than chemotherapy. And I know they were just fighting some laws in California last week saying that if any doctor, medical, chiropractic, whatever, if these laws were to pass, would suggest anything other for your natural immunity, boosting your immune system naturally, other than a vaccine, that it's medical malpractice and they can lose their license. So it's scary that we can't even talk about options that are out there. But we really need to talk about this metabolic option that you've found and how it helps your body help itself naturally. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, that's a great transition. You know, cancer traditionally has been thought about as a genetic disease, which is kind of like code for it's an uncontrollable disease. In fact, Dave Ramsey, who's one of the country's biggest speakers, in one of his speeches, he says, you can't control a hurricane or cancer. And his speech was not about cancer, okay? I get that, but it reflects a cultural understanding of cancer as uncontrollable and unpredictable. It's a gene mutates and you get cancer, and maybe the chemo will work, maybe it won't. That is the incorrect thinking of cancer. Cancer is a metabolic disease, which means that it's epigenetic. It's behind the genes, right? So your gene mutates, but why? Genes express themselves, and they express themselves differently in different environments, right? So if you're in a toxin-filled environment, which could be the food you eat, it could be the air quality, it could be a combination of things, it could be the lectins, man, that you're eating. Like, cancer is a journey of discovery and finding out why your body is reacting this way. And then there's also it could be a malfunction of process. You know, some people sweat more than others and get toxins out. Like, I know that this is a problem for me. It's why I have an infrared sauna. It's because I need to stimulate the sweat response and the detoxification process. So look, those are the things that cause your genes to mutate. And when you look at the function of a quickly reproducing cancer cell, there are these 10 hallmarks. They're called 10 hallmarks of cancer, and they're all metabolic in nature. Just to kind of like skim over it, is that all cancers eat fuel, and largely it's glucose, sugar, bread, carbs, glutamine, protein, right? People tell me all the time, how do you get enough protein on a vegan diet? And I'm like, how much protein should a cancer patient eat? Right. And it's like, we don't even consider that we're all used to having 2 breaded chicken breasts night for dinner. It's like a cancer patient especially should only be ingesting so much glutamine. And then there's some fat pathways and some estrogen pathways. There's other little pathways, but here's the thing, is that you can starve cancer, and you can cause it to die in your body without introducing any kind of harmful toxins. The trick is there's so many nuances, man. I believe that you can beat cancer at any age and at any stage, right? I believe that you can be an 82-year-old diagnosed with leukemia, stage 4, and beat it at 82 years old without any toxicity to your body. But I believe, like, not everybody is going to be healthy enough to bounce. I believe some people catch it too late. And I believe that there's nuances. And so what we want to do is just like help as many people as we can get started as fast as they can on metabolic therapies that will shrink the tumors and reduce the symptoms.
So with the metabolic therapy, do they do stuff for people not fighting cancer to help kind of preemptive strike, just cycle through every couple of years or once a year, do some sort of fasting system or something? Or is it only for cancer patients?
Yeah, no, that's great. Like metabolic therapies refer to therapies that strengthen the metabolism of the cell so that your body produces healthy cells. And a good metabolic like therapy protocol is going to include a variety from a variety of different fields, some of which other doctors may not call metabolic. I do, because it refers to, for example, let's talk about intravenous vitamin C. Okay. And I do a poly DCA. You guys may have heard of a Myers cocktail, vitamin C drips. We do these things at a medical level to induce apoptosis, which means it causes cancer cells to die. Cancer cells don't naturally die on their own. That's why they're mutants. They keep replicating, they keep growing. And so that's a metabolic therapy that might be right for some, might be right for others. Fasting is like the core, I think, godfather, granddaddy of all metabolic therapies. And I often tell people, if you are diagnosed with cancer, start fasting right now. Now, I've broken that down into a lifestyle, and I've done a couple crazy things. I've actually gone to a fasting clinic known for reversing cancer. There's 2 of these that I know of in the United States. There might be a few more. Is True North Health Center in California. That's who I called first. Dr. Alan Goldhammer there has a record for reversing cancer. It's amazing. And they publish and all these things and whatnot. But
how did you find something like that?
Self-education was huge. Like I first had to believe that I could beat cancer. And that sort of like happened while I was in the hospital watching a movie. Somebody recommended the documentary Heal to me. And I watched that movie in the hospital after my biopsy. And I was like, wait, people are beating cancer? I wasn't even aware of that, right? In that book, or in that movie, they interviewed an author, Kelly Turner, which led me to Radical Remission, which led me to Jane's book, How to Starve Cancer. And so it was like this really cool, like slow transition of like learning about this stuff and going to YouTube videos. So it's like, I knew about this fasting clinic, but I didn't think that I could go there. Right. So I called him and he called me back personally. And he's talking to me. He's like, yeah, you're probably about 9% body fat. He's like, you could fast. He's like, you couldn't fast for 21 days. You could do like 7 days though. And I'm booked up here. So call Dr. Gracie. So I called Dr. Gracie in Ohio and she's like, I've got room for you. I flew out there. I did a 7-day medically supervised water fast, water only. And she even like, there's no coffee in the house, right? Like you're in her house. It's a very cool kind of professional setup. I got an MRI done on my own dime. We paid for it ourselves. I got an MRI done before I went and after I went. And the 7-day fast showed a 30% reduction in my total tumor load. That was in just 7 days. So you can't do that every day though, right? Right. So that's where intermittent fasting comes in. And intermittent fasting is where you have eating windows throughout the day. Like for me, I'm actually fasting 20 hours a day now, and I love it, and it's perfect for me. Other people might want to do 16 hours a day, where like you stop eating at 7 p.m. and then you don't eat again until like noon, right? This is incredibly healthy. Breast cancer statistics show that like women who do this alone are like 83% less likely to have recurrence. Doesn't even matter what you eat if you just intermittent fast, right? That's how powerful metabolic therapies are in preventing cancer. So what I do is I intermittent fast every day. On Mondays, from Sunday night to Monday night, I do a 24-hour fast every week, just to clean up from the weekend. And I eat during the week, I eat a very strict keto vegan diet. You know, on the weekends, I eat a little bit more paleo, but But yes, I'm fasting is like a part of my life now. And it's what makes healing from cancer automatic. You don't have to think about it anymore. I'm not thinking about where I'm going to get a meal. I'm not thinking about like what dinner is going to be. It's going to be Brussels sprouts, or it's going to be a salad or something. Like it's going to be fresh and something I bought 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Right. And I have a variety. It could be broccoli. It could be asparagus. I'm getting crazy tonight. Maybe some tofu, But here's the thing is I love my diet and I love the way I eat. And I'm not a victim to the passing of the French fries when I pass by the store.
Yeah. It's like, oh, woe is me. I can't have something I used to have. Right.
Yes. I'm free to not be drawn into it, to know that that's actually an aroma. It's not actually the food. It's an oil they bought. They put in their heaters that they're blowing out to the street. And the food's going to taste different. I'm going to feel horrible if I eat it.
Right.
Right. So that's what fasting looks like in sort of like a livable therapeutic way. And we're measuring ketones along the way. So I don't measure ketones like much at all anymore because I kind of know my body. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I check my ketones and my blood sugar. I want to be with it, what's called the 0 to 3 GKI. It's a measurement the keto machine gives you. So my ketones are high, my blood sugar is low. And when you're in a state of ketosis, your body is actually working against cancer cells. It's not like, not only are they not forming, they're actually being fought against when you're in a state of ketosis. So I'm in ketosis most of the week. Weekends, I might have some fruit and open up a little bit and then fast and then go right back into it.
Clever. And I think the audience needs to know just from watching this video to see how healthy you look and the energy level that you have. I mean, it's just different than the traditional model of treatment for cancer, where it's literally taking you to the brink of death and you're hoping that you can hold on long enough to come back from that. Where this metabolic thing seems so much more pleasant.
Yes. And you're surrounded by other vibrant people. Like a big turning point for me was looking around the chemo room and going like, everyone here's dying.
Right.
And being like, I don't want to be around death. I want to be around the winners. Like that was just a natural, I'm an entrepreneur. You kind of know I'm a success-minded guy. I was super depressed and I was still having these thoughts like, I don't want to be around these guys. What I found was what we call the new stage 4, right? And the new stage 4, because you got to understand, like I have my tumors are much smaller today than they were 2 years ago, but they're still stage 4 tumors. And which means there's 5 different tumors. I think it's like 5 different, maybe there's 3 different now because they've shrunk so much, but it's multiple sites. And no distinction like that is made in the hospital. Like you're stage 4, you're stage 4.
Right.
And then they give you these stats of like, well, 85% of people will make it 5 years and then 10% make it 10 years. Or it's like this horrible, the 10-year number is always horrible. And the system, see, they can pound you with chemo. And if you make it 5 years, they consider it a success. But if you die at year 6, they considered you a success in their book. And so you have to ask yourself when you're diagnosed, do I want to be alive in 6 years? Because they're going to say I won if I'm alive for just 5. They're going to call me a winner, call me a hero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Call me a cancer survivor. The reality is their statistics are not based on everyone who got this cancer. The statistics are on everyone who got this cancer that did these drugs.
Yeah.
So you're looking at these survival rates of people that withstood the bullets. You're looking at the survival rates of the people that swam with sharks, and all these people that did placebos and got cured with fasting and hocus pocus, they're automatically discarded.
Yes.
And so we have to remember that the stats are not about who survives cancer. It's about who gets the chemo and survives cancer. And I wasn't interested in that number. I was interested in how many people like me, my age, got this cancer and beat it. And what I found was, number one, a community of people, even though I have a very rare cancer, and I'm finding more of them every day. And it's keto vegan diet, it's fasting, and we're all doing great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So I remember 20 years ago, I started talking about that the cure for cancer is in the prevention. But it's neat to see that there are ways now that we can prevent. And it's still, I used to talk about in my health class, and every once in a while I'd have a nurse or a doctor that was attending, and I would put this slide up. It's like three top killers: cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and they're all related to the choices of what we put in our mouth. And I was 20 years ago I was like, oh, you're a quack. The cure for cancer is chemotherapy. It's like, okay, well, it has a less than a 13% success rate, and there's all these natural things out there like you're doing that have an 80+% success rate. Yes. Well, how do you crunch your numbers and say we're the cure? And I love how you shared on that, how they just take those stats and throw them right out if you're doing something natural or off the radar of chemo.
And I was that guy. I was that guy. I did not believe in chiropractic until a friend of mine was a chiropractor. Like, I remember when I met him, I was just like, okay, I'm like, oh, doctor, and I came in and he showed me that I had like a 13-degree spine bend, and that was like close to like, it wasn't quite scoliosis or whatever, something like that. And then through 13 months of upper cervical specific adjustments, like we changed all that. Revolutionary. You know why? Because when I sat in his office, I was being exposed to sort of alternative therapies I wasn't even aware of. Like, I just liked the adjustment, you know what I mean? But then, I started listening to my mother-in-law. And again, I didn't believe her, but I was listening to her. She had reversed a terminal lupus diagnosis by going to a clinic in Mexico. And so I thought it was crazy. And yet I had heard about these clinics in Mexico. I had heard about Gerson therapy and da-da-da-da-da. So I feel like people that get diagnosed with like stage 2 and stage 3, which I think are a complete lie. There is no stage 3. If they found cancer, it's stage 4. Like, if they that's a different episode, but I don't believe in the cancer staging process. I believe it's the profiteering process. If you tell them stage 1, you tell them this, and then we get them for this later on. Is that when they told me it was stage 4 terminal, nothing I could do, it immediately sort of like closed my eyes. Well, then the hospital's worthless. All of a sudden, alternative therapy became like the obvious next step. And I still thought it was crazy, Doc. I was still like, the people that beat cancer with diet, it's random, it's not duplicatable. It's they had a thing, but I don't have that thing. If I don't eat every 4 hours, I shake, and it's like all these things. But the doctors told me I'm going to die, so I might as well try this diet thing. Right. You know what I mean? That's where my belief was at. And I was sort of eating keto vegan on faith. Immediately gave up all sugar, all stuff. And then my first 90 days scan was my first 30% drop. So I've had a bunch of different scans, like 30%, 50%, and 30% again. So that first scan was this major 30% drop in tumor reduction from keto vegan alone. Now, with that, I was brand new at it, so I wasn't eating a lot of calories. So there was fasting involved, but I didn't even know it. I didn't even know that was happening. So we have to be those people who are introducing alternative and holistic therapies to people at the risk of being mocked. And this is why I think chiropractors are so important, because you guys are largely, I have 3 chiropractors that I consult with right now. And the reason, they're all different, they're specialists in different ways. And I believe in that. We're blessed enough to be able to afford that. But I believe in the chiropractic model. I believe so much is happening from the chiropractic model. Those of us who now get chiropractic, we need to learn better how to talk about what that is and how the body heals itself, so that when other people we know get diagnosed with horrible diseases, they know that there's a route that they can go. And this is why I struggle with words like hypnosis, right? Because hypnosis is a metabolic therapy. It's closely connected to EMDR, closely connected to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But you call it hypnosis, and people think of carnival acts, you know. But it's a valuable, very, very valuable therapy. And so it's how we talk about metabolic therapies where I want to make an impact. You know, I really want to create content and work towards changing the standard of care. and what doctors can say and what they have to do. Like a doctor, I don't think should be able to say there's nothing we can do. The doctor should have to say there's nothing we can do here and be required to send you a list of metabolic therapies. These are things we want to work towards. And in the meantime, we just need more people sharing what we know about the body and its ability to heal.
I couldn't have said that better myself. That was well articulated on how important it is. Education is a key part. It's a key part. People got to know. They got to know how this little machine is they're living in works, and we don't. But we're not born with an owner's manual, and so we just grow up with these bad habits that we learn from friends or family, and keep feeding it neurotoxins, digesting toxins, breathing into whatever, stressing that nervous system, and without the right nutrition and without that nerve flow turned on, it just simply can't work right.
What I believe has been the big winner for me in beating cancer has really been my deep internal belief that I'm valuable and that I'm capable of surviving this. And that like convinced like that cancer no longer can grow in my body, right? Like in terms of a affirmational standpoint, like it's those sort of internal, like spiritual sort of nervous, because it's all based in your vagus nerve and your nervous system and calming that down and affirmations. Like there's so much science behind it. And yet here's the thing. I would never go to a cancer patient and say, you really need to believe that you can heal. Like, because I would have said you're a crazy person, you know? So instead, like we like to get really tactical with like start fasting and eat keto vegan now. And then we start throwing them books about the vagal nerve and we start throwing them books about stress levels. Cause I'll tell you, I did not believe for the longest time that stress had anything to do with my cancer. That to me was nonsense, even in the last 2 years. But reading and understanding the various types of and talking to my chiropractors and asking them what they know, what they've seen, you learn that the body is actually the most powerful force on the planet. And we are strong. It is hard to kill a human, you know, and yet we think it's so easy. Like if disease is going to get me, it's going to have to fight ultra hard because I know how my body works and I know how to stop disease in its tracks now.
Yeah. Awesome. If only more of us knew and had that faith, confidence, and belief that you've had to discover the hard way, though. It wasn't Jack and Jill book that's like, oh, this is easy reading. I know how everything works on my body. I mean, you had to really deep dive and form some new lifestyles. But wow, what a game changer you've done.
I'm a completely different person. I am still very much a type A, love business and love achieving, but that's in balance with what I really want for my life. And one of the things I've learned from you and it is that you have all this DeLorean stuff. You have all this Back to the Future stuff. And I'm good buddies with a guy named Pat Flynn, who's a business speaker, and he loves Back to the Future. But I don't think he loves it nearly as much as you love it. and I really enjoy seeing that. I enjoy seeing your passions on display in the office. And it realized for me, like I'm really kind of holding on to things like money and because I grew up poor and I'm scared of being poor, all these things like money story stuff, you know. But then seeing that like, no, you've got to spend, you got to invest a little bit in the things you enjoy. For me, it's travel. So instead of putting DeLorean stuff up on my wall, which is something you really love doing, going to conferences and meeting people and all that stuff, I'm really enjoying having a good, strong work week and then renting an Airbnb for a couple of days, taking my family. And where before I would have been like, no, I save money. We'll do Yellowstone later or whatever. Just like, screw it. Let's just go to Park City for 2 nights and see what happens. You know what I mean? I'm a completely different person now than I was then. I am happier now. I am more fulfilled now. I feel that my future is brighter. Before my diagnosis, I didn't know what my quality was like. I was getting angioplasties all the time, man. Like I didn't know what my future held for me, if I even wanted that future, you know? So I flipped everything around. It's made my marriage better. And I struggled because I believe in God and strongly, I have a strong faith background, but I had a really hard time like coming to like, thank you, God, for cancer. And yet that's where I'm at today. Like if it wasn't for cancer, I never would have got my life in order. I never would have realized that my priority is raising my kids. And I would never have this thrilling life that I have now. And so it's weird, but cancer was this just like mega wake up call.
It's powerful. Well, I think backtrack to some of the things you said, it sounds like it starts up here, but we can't, for a person who just discovers they have cancer, you can't be cramming stuff in their head first. You got to slowly do that. You got to get them doing the mechanical stuff of changing their diet, and then start learning the steps that will help fill their head with the right faith, confidence, and belief that they can actually beat this stuff and that they are indeed a healthy individual fighting a symptom. Because cancer is a symptom of a lifestyle problem, right? And then I really think it's important how you pointed out the stress is a huge factor. People have got to learn how to deal with stress better. And I also love how you brought up some very Garrett Gunderson kind of comments where he talks about, I love Garrett, I love quoting Garrett, how he talks about the 5 pillars of health, and money is not, I mean, it's one of the pillars of wealth, but our health is a huge pillar. Our social and family values is important, and living your wealth. Don't just, like you're doing, going and traveling, living those memories and those quality times with your family on the weekend. Work hard, play hard, balancing that out rather than just work hard to save for someday. What's someday? I mean, we got to live our life and enjoy it.
Exactly. And it's actually increased our revenue, right? Because we're coming back refreshed. We're not spending as much money on medical treatment, right? Like, our marriage is thriving. So we're vibing more. And it's coming off to the customers. You know, I looked at it as like holding on to the wealth, very Ebenezer Scrooge kind of way. But I see it now as an investment, as like, this is what makes us better. And it actually, like, our business has grown through cancer. And I think that's crazy, right? Like I was speaking to someone yesterday and he's laughing at me. And he goes, you know, he's like, you got cancer and then you beat it. And then you like generate all that revenue for your company. He's like, and now you're like nursing a snowboard injury because you're like on the mountain, you know? He's just like, you have the craziest story and I don't even think you know it. And it's interesting. Because it's just like, I wanted to survive. And in doing that, I found life.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to put it on. Man, we hit some great stuff today. I can't thank you enough for sharing part of your story. I know this is just tip of the iceberg stuff, but I also know it's going to help somebody out there. So,
yeah, I hope so, man. And, you know, that's my, big belief. You've heard the parable of the man on the shore throwing the starfish back in, right? Like all these beach starfish, and he's throwing one starfish in, you know, another, but there's billions out there. And this guy goes, hey, you know what? You're not going to be able to save all the starfish. And the man says, yeah, but I can save this one. And, you know, I can save this one. And that's how I feel about with like, these stories. Like the moment that I decided to beat cancer in my mind, I determined that I would journal and document it because I know in my life, it keeps me accountable. Right. So I'm going to journal, I'm going to document this. My gifting is video. So that's obvious thing to start a YouTube channel, and that's that beatcancerwithme.com is where you can find us. But you know, when I decided to do it, I decided to document it. And when you do that, you stay accountable to it. And if one person asks you, you've got these resources. And so like I made this sheet of like everything I did to beat cancer. It's a Google document. And people call me all the time from YouTube and from Instagram. And they're like, can you tell me what to do? And I'm like, read this Google document. Some of them are going to be cancer, man. Some of those people are going to beat their cancers and they're going to call me up and they're going to be like, you gave me that Google document, changed my life. You know, and it's a freaking Google document. It's not a book, you know, or it's a YouTube video, you know, kind of thing. And so if we could just pull one person out, but here's my theory. I feel like a simple blog post or a good video could actually pull hundreds of people out. And if those people lose their trust in the medical system, and those people decide to start voting, and those people tell more people, like, we might actually change the standard of care in this country, and get to a point where people go, hey, it's just cancer.